We're welcoming back Ted Savransky, professional sports bettor out in Vegas, and anxious to hear what Ted's got to say about some injury updates on the teams that survived divisional playoff weekend. So, Ted, first and foremost, glad to have you back with us, and I hope you beat the book hard this weekend. What's really standing out, and if you can, just kind of take it team by team injury-wise, and let's see what kind of red flags went up, what was unexpected, and what may be a problem going into next week.
Sure. Let's start. Let's start with Carolina on the injury front. Now, we've talked a lot about the Panthers being without two of their top three cornerbacks, and boy, you think they missed Ben Wiki and Tillman when Russell Wilson was picking them apart for like 300 yards in the second half of that game? Yeah, that's going to continue to be a problem for the Panthers. When you're missing two of your top three players in the secondary or at the cornerback position. You know, that's an impact injury when it comes to January football, particularly when we talk about going up against Carson Palmer and the like. And to make matters worse for Carolina, they just lost their elite pass rusher, Jared Allen, a future Hall of Famer, who was Allen's not an all-around player. He does one thing, and he does it really well. You know, he rushes the passer. He broke his foot, I believe. He's expected to miss the rest of the playoffs. Without him, we're looking at Coney Ely and Ryan Deliere as their two candidates to replace him. Both those guys, they combined for 7.5 sacks this season in limited time. So there is still a pass rushing threat, but the loss of Allen certainly matters for Carolina, particularly when it's coupled with those two injuries in the secondary.
Have you heard any updates on Greg Olsen? Because I heard he took a stinger, took a hell of a shot, and they say he's pretty banged up. But I heard him in an interview. He wasn't talking about the injury. He was just talking about the win. But have you had any updates on Greg Olsen?
Olsen was knocked off, was knocked out of the game, and then he returned in the fourth quarter. I would expect him to be fine moving forward. I don't think there's going to be any residual effects.
What's the next team you want to break down, Ted?
We're in the NFC. Let's talk about Arizona.
Okay.
And, really, Arizona came out of their win against Green Bay pretty healthy. Of the four teams still standing, I would call the Cardinals, even though they suffered, they had cluster injuries at running back earlier in the season, and they've been forced to go with the rookie David Johnson ever since. And Johnson didn't have a real good game, only 35 yards on the ground against Green Bay. But by and large, in terms of new injuries, there was very little for Arizona. They did, however, saw Justin Bethel, one of their cornerbacks, forced to leave the game. And, of course, it's a team that's already lost the Pro Bowl safety in Tyrann Mathieu a couple of weeks ago. Bethel's status not yet determined, but if he's out, that's two key players from that secondary out against Carolina. And we know how the Panthers love to test opposing teams downfield.
Absolutely. One thing for the Cardinals, though, thank God Fitzgerald just found his youth again. He just really looked excited in the second half. Haven't seen him play like that in a minute. Okay, moving on to the AFC. We want to start with the Patriots?
Sure, the Patriots. This is a team that's been obviously riddled with injuries all season long. The receiving corps is as healthy as it's been. They had Gronkowski, Amendola, and Edelman on the field at the same time.
Yeah, it's huge.
And healthy for the first time, I think, since October. It's been quite some time. And the offense, boom, 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 touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. They got off to that 21-6 lead, and then were able to milk the clock the rest of the way. So it certainly made a difference, and it made a difference with Brady under pressure. We talked about it a little bit last week. Tom, it's not a great offensive line in New England. They were missing three starters, and then Brian Stork got hurt, so a fourth starter was out during the game. But when Brady has his receiving core, the ball comes out of it's his full complement of those quick, speedy receivers, the guys that are elusive as opposed to being tall and strong. When he's got a couple of those receivers and then Gronkowski over the middle, it's a very difficult passing game to stop because the ball comes out of Tom Brady's hands so quickly. But in terms of the injuries on the offensive line, Stork did come back into the game. The initial report that I saw this morning didn't have any serious concerns about Stork's availability. But Trey Jackson, the starting guard, wasn't able to suit up at all this last week. His status very much a question mark. New England did continue to suffer injuries on the defensive side of the football. Donta Hightower has been battling injuries. He came back, and then he left the field again. Jared Mayo hurt his shoulder. He left the game unable to return. You have Jamie Collins, who also left the game. He suffered a back injury. He didn't get back on the field. That's 3 linebackers, that's a big concern. They had a guy, Belichick signed this guy, Dakota Watson, off the waiver wire in late December to help on special teams. Ended up playing 13 snaps at linebacker in the win over KC. And, that was a portion of the game in which the Chiefs were, A, ripping off chunks of yardage on the ground, and B, making New England backers sweat in the latter stages of the fourth quarter. So the cluster injuries at linebacker are a real concern for New England. Nobody's officially been ruled out or in for this weekend, but those are injuries you definitely want to keep your eye on.
Yeah, no doubt. Jared Mayo and, like you said, Jamie Collins, I took note on both of them, and that's going to be impactful if they're not able to suit up. But then again, you give Belichick his chance to do what he does best, and that's plug holes. But my God, how many deep are you at the linebacker position? So that could be crucial. We're going to keep our eyes on that. And last but not least, the Broncos, Ted. Denver Broncos, they had a couple injuries there. What do you know about those injuries, and is there any of them that might not be as severe as maybe thought at first?
Yeah, Denver doesn't look too bad on the injury front. There are 2 injuries worth talking about that they suffered in yesterday's game. They lost Chris Harris Jr. He hurt his left shoulder. That was an injury that he had already suffered. And at the cornerback position, this is the no-fly zone in Denver. It's the number 1 pass defense in the NFL. And if Harris is unable to suit up, it definitely will affect that Broncos pass defense. And, of course, Denver's offense hasn't really worked, certainly not clicked on all cylinders type of working at any point this season, which makes their special teams that much more important. Their special teams have been great all year. Omar Bolden, the punt returner, he's got a punt return touchdown this season. Well, he got hurt in yesterday's game as well. And, those extra 10 or 20 yards with a good punt returner that you get in field position, they matter at this time of year. Denver, with the Bolden injury, and it doesn't, I think he was put on IR this morning. That is maybe not a loss that's going to attract a lot of attention, but is one of those subtle losses that could most assuredly affect field position and therefore results when they meet up as home underdogs with the Patriots on Sunday.
Yeah, I had looked at that Omar Bolden. I saw it when it went from questionable to doubtful, and then you just told me you might have put him on IR. So, yeah, they're going to feel that, and it's those little things that make good teams great. So I agree. Well, Ted, thanks for your time breaking down these injuries, and we look forward to getting back with you tomorrow and then the rest of the week, just, plunging into this weekend and championship weekend for the conferences, and we'll see who comes out on top. Have a great day, Ted.